My mom always called my sister her pride and joy. Then Aunt Carol left me her $22 million vineyard, and they all demanded their share. Growing up, I was invisible. My sister got the family vacations, the college fund, the birthday parties with actual guests. I got hand-me-downs and a card on my birthday if they remembered. Mom would introduce her as my beautiful daughter and me as the other one. Dad never corrected her. When I graduated high school, they didn't come to the ceremony. My sister had a tennis match. When I got into nursing school using scholarships and loans, Mom said, "That's nice, dear," without looking up from her phone. My sister's acceptance to a state school with my parents paying full tuition got a champagne dinner and a new car. I worked 3 jobs through nursing school. I paid every cent myself. I'd see my family maybe twice a year, always at their convenience, always feeling like an obligation they were checking off a list. Then Aunt Carol died. She'd been the only one who remembered my birthdays, who asked about my life, who seemed to actually see me. She'd never married, poured everything into her vineyard in Napa Valley. At the funeral, I cried real tears. My sister checked her Instagram. The lawyer called me 2 days later. Aunt Carol had left me everything. The vineyard, the house, the entire operation valued at $22 million. She'd left my sister $50,000 and my parents nothing. The letter she'd written explained why. "You were the only one who visited me because you wanted to, not because you wanted something." I hadn't even known the visits mattered that much. I just loved hearing her stories, learning about wine, sitting on her porch watching the sunset over the vines. My phone exploded within an hour of the will reading. Mom called me selfish and ungrateful. Dad said family shares everything. My sister sobbed that she'd always loved Aunt Carol so much. How could she do this? They'd never visited her once in the nursing home, not once during her final 6 months. They showed up at my apartment that night, all 3 of them. Mom brought a lawyer. They had papers drawn up for me to sign, splitting everything 4 ways. "It's only fair," Dad said. "We're family." I looked at the papers, at their expectant faces, at my sister's designer purse that cost more than my monthly rent. "No," I said. The screaming started immediately. 20 years of venom poured out. I was a greedy bitch, a conniving snake, an ungrateful daughter who'd manipulated a dying woman. My sister called me pathetic, said I'd always been jealous of her. I let them finish. Then I pulled out my phone and played a video. Aunt Carol had recorded it a month before she died, knowing this would happen. Her voice was weak but clear. "If they're watching this, they're demanding money they didn't earn from a niece they never valued. Tell them I saw exactly who they are, and tell them I made my choice with full clarity." My mom's face went white. My dad grabbed the papers and tore them up. My sister called me a vindictive bitch and stormed out. That was 3 weeks ago. Yesterday, I got a call from my mom's lawyer. They're suing for their rightful share of the inheritance, claiming I coerced Aunt Carol, that she wasn't mentally competent, that I isolated her from her family. But here's what they don't know. Aunt Carol kept journals. Detailed journals documenting every missed visit, every phone call they ignored, every time they asked her for money over the years. She also kept the texts. My mom asking for $30,000 for my sister's wedding, Dad wanting investment capital, my sister requesting a small loan for a car. Aunt Carol had been documenting their behavior for 5 years, building a case. She knew they'd come after me. She'd prepared for it. And tomorrow I meet with my own lawyer to file a countersuit for harassment. The morning of the meeting, I woke up at 4 a.m., couldn't sleep. I'd been having nightmares about losing everything, about the court deciding my family deserved a cut after all, about going back to being invisible, but now with the added shame of briefly having something they wanted. I made coffee in my tiny kitchen and pulled out the boxes Aunt Carol's estate lawyer had delivered last week, 3 bankers' boxes filled with evidence. I'd already read through most of it, but I kept going back, finding new details that made my chest tight. Journal entry from April 2019. Called my brother today to invite him and Patricia to the vineyard for Easter. He said they were too busy, but I saw on Facebook they went to Cabo. They have time for beaches, but not for family. Meanwhile, my niece works double shifts at the hospital and still drove 4 hours to bring me homemade soup when I had the flu. Text message from my mom, July 2020. "Carol, we're in a bind. My daughter's wedding is in 3 months and we're $30,000 short. You have so much, and we're family. Can you help us out?" Aunt Carol's response, "I'll write you a check, but I want you to know this is the 4th time you've asked me for money in 2 years. Meanwhile, your other daughter visited me 6 times last month and never asked for anything except how I was feeling." My mom never responded to that text. She just cashed the check. I found a letter Aunt Carol had written but never sent. It was addressed to my dad, dated 6 months before she died. "Dear brother, I'm dying. The doctors give me less than a year. I thought you should know, though I doubt you'll care beyond what it means for your wallet. I've watched you raise 2 daughters completely differently. I've watched you shower one with everything while treating the other like an afterthought. I've watched you miss her high school graduation, her nursing school graduation, every milestone that mattered. Do you know she worked 3 jobs to put herself through school? Do you know she went 48 hours without sleep during her final exams because she couldn't afford to take time off work? Do you even know what hospital she works at? I doubt it. Because you've never asked. I'm leaving her everything, not to punish you, though you deserve it, but because she's the only one who loved me without conditions. She's the only one who saw me as a person instead of an ATM. You raised one daughter to be entitled, and another to be resilient. Now you'll see which one you should have invested in. Carol." I was crying by the time I finished reading. I'd always known Aunt Carol cared about me, but I hadn't realized how deeply she'd seen what my childhood was really like, how she'd been documenting not just the money requests, but the emotional neglect. The way my parents had systematically made me feel worthless while building my sister up as some kind of princess. My lawyer's office was downtown, a 40-minute drive from my apartment. Her name was Vivian Rodriguez, and she'd been Aunt Carol's personal attorney for 15 years. She was the one who'd called me after the funeral, the one who'd delivered the boxes of evidence, the one who'd warned me this was coming. "They'll sue," she'd said. "Families always do when there's this much money involved." But Carol prepared for this. She documented everything. Vivian's office was on the 20th floor of a glass building with a view of the bay. Her receptionist knew me by now, waved me through without making me sign in. Vivian was waiting in her conference room, papers spread across a massive table. "How are you holding up?" she asked. I set the coffee I'd brought her on the table. She drank it black, no sugar. I'd learned that during our first meeting. "I'm okay. Nervous. Don't be. We have everything we need." She gestured at the papers. "Your parents' lawsuit is actually doing us a favor. It gives us the chance to enter all of Carol's documentation into the public record. Everything they've done, every time they used her, every time they neglected you. It'll all be part of the court transcript. Won't that make things worse with them? Vivian looked at me like I was naive. Things can't get worse. They're already suing you for millions of dollars while calling you a manipulative snake. The relationship is over. Now we just need to make sure you keep what Carol intended for you to have. She was right. I'd been holding on to some fantasy that maybe we could reconcile, that maybe once the dust settled, we could find some way to be a family again. But that ship had sailed the moment they showed up at my apartment with papers to divide my inheritance. Walk me through their case, I said. Vivian pulled out a thick file. They're claiming 3 things. First, that Carol wasn't mentally competent when she made her will. Second, that you manipulated and coerced her into leaving you everything. Third, that you deliberately isolated her from her family to ensure you'd be the sole beneficiary. That's insane. Aunt Carol was sharper than anyone I've ever met. She ran a multi-million-dollar business until 6 months before she died. We know that, and we can prove it. I have statements from her doctors, her business partners, her accountant, even her neighbors. Everyone will testify that Carol was completely lucid and in full control of her faculties when she made her will. In fact, she updated it just 4 months before she passed, and the lawyer who oversaw that update is prepared to testify about how clear and decisive she was. What about the manipulation claims? Vivian smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. That's where this gets fun. They're claiming you manipulated her by visiting frequently and providing emotional support. Their argument is essentially that you were kind to a dying woman and therefore you brainwashed her into leaving you money. That's ridiculous. It's worse than ridiculous. It's insulting to Carol's memory and intelligence, and it's going to backfire spectacularly when we present evidence of why you were the only one visiting. She pulled out a timeline she'd created. It showed every visit I'd made to Aunt Carol over the last 5 years, cross-referenced with every visit my parents and sister had made. The difference was staggering. My visits, 127 over 5 years, sometimes once a month, sometimes twice a week when she got sicker. I'd driven 4 hours each way, stayed for an afternoon or a weekend, helped her with errands, cooked meals, just sat and talked. My parents' visits, 3 over 5 years, each one less than 2 hours, each one ending with a request for money. My sister's visits, 1, for the funeral. This is what the jury will see, Vivian said. And then we'll show them the texts. Your mom asking for $30,000 for the wedding. Your dad asking for $50,000 to invest in some tech startup that went belly up in 6 months. Your sister asking for $15,000 for a car, then selling that car 3 months later to fund a trip to Europe. Aunt Carol gave them all that money? Every penny. She kept copies of every check, every wire transfer. She documented every request and every payment. And here's the really damaging part. She documented every time they promised to visit and didn't show up. Your mom promised to come help Carol move into assisted living. Never showed. Your dad promised to handle some business paperwork for her. Never showed. Your sister promised to visit for Carol's 75th birthday. Never showed. I felt sick. I'd known my family was self-centered, but seeing it all laid out like this, every broken promise and mercenary interaction documented in black and white, it was devastating. There's more, Vivian said. She pulled out another file. Carol hired a private investigator 2 years before she died. What? She wanted to know if you were visiting her because you wanted something. She had you followed, had your finances investigated, everything. She needed to know if you were playing a long game. My stomach dropped. And the investigator found that you were exactly who you appeared to be. A young woman working multiple jobs to pay off student loans, who spent her days off visiting her elderly aunt because she genuinely cared about her. The report notes that you never asked Carol for money, never hinted at financial difficulties, never brought up her estate or her will. You just showed up, helped out, and left. I didn't know whether to be relieved or hurt that Aunt Carol had investigated me, but I understood why she'd done it. She'd been burned by family before. She'd needed to know. The investigator also looked into your parents and sister, Vivian continued, and he found a pattern. Every time they contacted Carol, it was either to ask for money or to brag about something they'd bought. No calls just to check in, no texts just to say hi. Every interaction was transactional. She slid a document across the table. It was a phone record analysis. Every call between my parents and Aunt Carol over 3 years, with notes about the content of each call when available. 17 calls from my parents to Aunt Carol. 15 of them included requests for money. The other 2 were invitations to events that required expensive gifts. Jesus, I whispered. The investigator also documented something else, Vivian said quietly. He followed your parents to a country club where they were having lunch with friends. He recorded them discussing Carol. Your mother called her the family bank account. Your father joked about hoping she'd die soon so they could finally get their inheritance. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. When was this? 16 months before Carol died. She was still active then, still running the vineyard. They were already planning her funeral. Did she know that they said that? Yes. The investigator played her the recording. That's when she decided to leave them nothing. Before that, she'd planned to split the estate between you and your sister, with small bequests to your parents. But after she heard that recording, she cut them all out except for the $50,000 to your sister. And she only left your sister that much because she felt sorry for her. Said she'd been raised to be shallow and entitled, but maybe there was still time for her to learn better. I thought about my sister at the funeral, checking Instagram while I cried. Maybe Aunt Carol had been too optimistic. So what happens now? I asked. Now we wait for their move. They've filed the lawsuit, but they haven't submitted their evidence yet. They're probably scrambling to find anything they can use, maybe hoping some of Carol's old business associates will testify she was losing her edge. Or maybe they're trying to find other family members who'll say you were manipulative. But here's the thing, they won't find any of that, because it doesn't exist. What about the countersuit you mentioned? Vivian's smile returned. We're filing for harassment and emotional distress. They've been calling you at all hours, showing up at your apartment, sending threatening messages. We have it all documented. And we're also filing for damages. Carol's estate included a provision that if anyone contested the will in bad faith, they'd forfeit any bequest they'd received. Your sister got $50,000. If the court finds their lawsuit is frivolous, she'll have to pay that back, plus interest and court costs. Will they really find it frivolous? Let me put it this way. I've been practicing estate law for 23 years. I've seen plenty of cases where families had legitimate grounds to contest a will. This isn't one of them. Your parents have zero evidence of mental incompetence, zero evidence of coercion, and zero evidence of isolation. What they have is hurt feelings and greed. That's not enough to overturn a will that was drafted by one of the best estate attorneys in California and witnessed by 3 professionals who all attested to Carol's mental clarity. I wanted to feel relieved, but I just felt exhausted. How long will this take? Probably 6 to 9 months for the lawsuit to be dismissed, maybe another 6 months for our countersuit to settle. Your parents' lawyer is a guy named Mitchell Brennan. He's a slip-and-fall attorney who's never handled an estate case in his life. He took this case because they probably promised him a huge payout, but he's in way over his head. I give it 3 months before he realizes he's going to lose and tries to convince them to drop it. What if they don't drop it? Then we go to court and we destroy them. Every text message, every journal entry, every broken promise will be read aloud in a courtroom. Every time they treated you like garbage will be documented in the public record. They'll lose, and they'll lose big. The question is whether they're smart enough to cut their losses before it gets that far. I left Vivian's office feeling better, but also worse. Better because I knew I had a strong case. Worse because I couldn't believe it had come to this. My own family suing me, trying to take away the one thing someone had given me because they thought I mattered. My phone rang as I was getting into my car. Mom. I'd stopped answering her calls after the 4th one devolved into screaming, but I looked at the voicemail she left. You need to drop this nonsense and do the right thing. We're your family. We raised you. We fed you. We put a roof over your head. You owe us. Carol was our family too, and we deserve our share. If you don't come to your senses, you're going to regret this. You're going to end up alone with all that money and no one who loves you. Is that what you want? To be some rich, miserable spinster? Call me back and let's settle this like adults. I deleted the voicemail and blocked her number. Then I blocked Dad's number and my sister's number. If they wanted to communicate with me, they could do it through their lawyer. I drove back to my apartment, stopping at the grocery store on the way. I was still working at the hospital 3 days a week. I hadn't quit yet, even though I could technically afford to. The inheritance was in probate and wouldn't be fully released until the legal issues were resolved. Plus, I liked my job. I liked helping people, liked the routine of it, liked feeling useful. My coworker Ramona was in the produce section when I walked in. She was in her 50s, had been a nurse for 30 years, and had become something like a mentor to me over the past few years. Hey girl, she said, dropping avocados into her cart. How you holding up? I'd told her about the inheritance and the lawsuit. She was one of the few people I'd confided in. I'm okay. Just met with my lawyer. She says we're going to win. Of course you're going to win. Your family doesn't have a leg to stand on. She studied my face. But you don't look like someone who's winning. You look exhausted. I am exhausted. I barely slept last night. I keep having these dreams where the judge sides with them and I lose everything. Ramona pulled me into a hug right there in the produce section. That's not going to happen. But honey, you need to take care of yourself. When's the last time you did something just for you? Not work, not lawyer meetings, not stress. Something fun. I couldn't remember. The last few weeks had been a blur of legal documents and anxiety. I don't know. This weekend you and me are going to a spa, my treat. We're getting massages and facials, and we're not going to talk about lawsuits or terrible families or any of that. We're just going to relax. Ramona, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm telling. Saturday, 10 a.m. Meet me at that place on Market Street. And that's an order from your superior. She winked. I smiled for the first time in days. Okay, thank you. That's what friends are for. Now go home and get some sleep. You look like death warmed over. I went home and actually managed to sleep. When I woke up, it was dark outside and my phone was buzzing. Not a call, but a notification. Someone had tagged me on Facebook. I opened it and felt my blood run cold. My sister had posted a long message on her Facebook page, and she tagged me, my parents, and about 50 other people. I'm heartbroken to share that my family is going through a very difficult time. My aunt recently passed away, and in her grief and confusion, she made some choices that have torn our family apart. My sister has chosen money over family, refusing to honor what we all know my aunt would have really wanted, for all of us to share in her legacy. Instead, my sister has turned into someone I don't recognize. Someone greedy and cruel who has cut us all off just because she thinks she deserves everything. I'm asking for prayers for our family during this time, and I hope that eventually my sister will come to her senses and remember that family is more important than money. Family first. Heartbroken. Pray for us. The post had 47 likes and 23 comments, all of them sympathetic. People calling me terrible names, people saying they'd pray for my sister, people talking about how sad it was when money corrupted people. I wanted to respond. I wanted to post Aunt Carol's journals, the text messages, everything. I wanted to show everyone who my family really was. Instead, I took a screenshot and sent it to Vivian with a message. Is this legal? She responded within 5 minutes. It's not illegal, but it's stupid. She's creating a public record of defaming you. Save everything. Every post, every comment, every share. It's all evidence. I screenshot the entire post and all the comments, then deactivated my Facebook account. I couldn't deal with watching people who didn't know the full story trash me online. My sister posted 2 more times over the next week, each one more elaborate than the last. She started a GoFundMe to help my parents with their legal fees. She did an Instagram live where she cried about how I'd abandoned the family. She even gave an interview to some local blogger about financial abuse in families. Every time I documented it, every time I sent it to Vivian, and every time Vivian said the same thing. She's building our case for us. 3 weeks after I met with Vivian, my parents' lawyer sent over their evidence. It was a pathetic collection of nothing. A statement from my mom's friend saying she'd heard Aunt Carol was forgetful in her last year. A statement from my dad's business partner saying Carol had once gotten confused about a meeting time. A statement from my sister's roommate saying I'd always been quiet and weird, which she claimed was evidence of my manipulative nature. Vivian called me after reviewing it. She was laughing. This is it? This is what they're basing their case on? A friend saying Carol was forgetful and another friend calling you weird? Is it enough? It's enough to make their lawyer look like an idiot when we present our evidence. We have medical records, business documents, testimony from 3 different doctors, and a cognitive assessment Carol passed with flying colors 6 months before she died. Their case is DOA. So what happens now? Now I send them our evidence. All of it. Every journal entry, every text message, every piece of documentation Carol left behind. I'm going to bury them in paper, and then I'm going to give them 30 days to drop their lawsuit or face a countersuit that will cost them everything. Everything? I'm not playing around anymore. They want to accuse you of elder abuse and manipulation? Fine. We'll sue them for defamation, harassment, and emotional distress. We'll sue for every nasty Facebook post, every threatening phone call, every time they've made your life hell over the past month, and we'll win. The damages could easily hit 6 figures, maybe more if we can prove malice. They don't have that kind of money. Then they'll lose their house. Maybe that'll teach them something about greed. I didn't want them to lose their house. I didn't want any of this. I just wanted them to leave me alone. But I also knew that being nice hadn't worked. Being reasonable hadn't worked. They'd seen my kindness as weakness, and now they were trying to take everything from me. Do it, I said. Send them everything. Vivian sent the documents on a Friday afternoon. By Friday evening, my phone was blowing up with calls from blocked numbers. I didn't answer. On Saturday morning, someone knocked on my door at 6 a.m. I looked through the peephole. Dad. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in days. I know you're in there, he called. We need to talk, please. I didn't open the door. Anything you want to say, you can say through your lawyer. Please, just listen. Your mother and I made a mistake. We didn't know Carol had documented all of that. You thought you could bully me into giving you money. You thought I'd roll over like I always did. No, that's not. Please, just open the door. Let's talk about this face to face. Why? So you can scream at me again? Call me selfish and ungrateful again? I'm done, Dad. You made your choice when you sued me. We'll drop the lawsuit. Today. We'll call Mitchell right now and drop it. Just please, can we start over? Can we fix this? I wanted to believe him. Some part of me, the little girl who'd spent her whole childhood trying to earn her parents' love, desperately wanted to believe that they'd had some kind of revelation, that seeing Aunt Carol's journals had made them realize how badly they'd treated me, that we could somehow salvage something from the wreckage of our relationship. But I remembered Aunt Carol's letter, the one she'd never sent to Dad, the one where she'd documented all the ways he'd failed as a father. And I knew that this wasn't about regret or reconciliation. This was about them realizing they were going to lose. Drop the lawsuit, I said through the door. Have your lawyer file the paperwork by Monday morning, and then stay away from me. What about the family? We're still your parents. Your sister is still your sister. No, you were people who housed me until I turned 18, and my sister was someone who got everything I didn't. That's not family. That's just biology. I heard him lean against the door. When he spoke again, his voice was broken. I'm sorry. I know I wasn't the father you deserved. I know we favored your sister, but I'm trying to make it right now. Please give me a chance. You had 18 years to make it right. You had 100 chances. You didn't take any of them. It's too late now. He stayed there for another 10 minutes, alternating between begging and trying to explain, and eventually getting angry again. I turned on the TV to drown him out. Eventually, he left. On Monday morning, Vivian called. They dropped the lawsuit. Papers were filed at 9:03 a.m. It's over. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I just felt empty. What about the countersuit? That's up to you. We can still file it. We have grounds. But if you want to just be done with this, we can let it go. I thought about it for a long time. Part of me wanted to punish them, wanted to make them pay for all the years of neglect and the last month of harassment. But another part of me just wanted to move on with my life. Let it go, I said finally. I don't want their money. I just want them out of my life. You sure? They defamed you pretty publicly. You deserve compensation for that. I'm sure. Just make sure the probate can proceed without any more challenges. I want this finished. Done. I'll file the paperwork today. You should have full access to your inheritance within 60 days. 60 days. 2 months and I'd officially be a millionaire. It didn't feel real. The vineyard was in Napa, a 4-hour drive from my apartment. I'd visited it dozens of times when Aunt Carol was alive, but I hadn't been back since the funeral. I decided it was time. I took a Friday off work and drove up Thursday evening, stopping at a hotel halfway there. I wanted to arrive in the morning, wanted to see it in daylight. I barely slept, too anxious about what I'd find. Aunt Carol had hired a management company to run the day-to-day operations, but I had no idea if they were any good or if the place had fallen apart in the months since her death. I drove through the gates at 8 a.m. The long driveway was lined with grapevines heavy with fruit, ready for harvest. The main house sat on a hill overlooking the valley, a beautiful Victorian that Aunt Carol had restored herself over 20 years. A woman came out to meet me as I parked. She was in her 40s, wearing jeans and a work shirt, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. You must be the new owner, she said, extending her hand. I'm Tracy Hammond. I've been managing the vineyard for the past 6 years. We shook hands. Nice to meet you. I'm sorry it took me so long to come up here. Things have been complicated. Carol warned me they might be. She told me about her family situation. Tracy's expression was sympathetic but professional. She also told me that if anything happened to her, I should wait to hear from you, that you'd come when you were ready. We walked through the vineyard while Tracy explained the operation. They had 40 acres under cultivation, producing about 4,000 cases of wine per year. They had a tasting room that attracted tourists, a wine club with 800 members, and contracts with several high-end restaurants. The business was profitable, generating about $800,000 in revenue annually. Carol ran a tight ship, Tracy said. Everything is documented, every process is optimized. She built something really special here. The question is, what do you want to do with it? I don't know, I admitted. I'm a nurse. I don't know anything about running a vineyard. You don't have to. That's what I'm here for. But you need to decide if you want to keep it or sell it. Because if you're going to keep it, you need to be involved. Not necessarily in the day-to-day operations, but in the big decisions. Carol was very hands-on. She knew every vine, every barrel, every bottle. The business reflected her passion. If you're going to continue her legacy, you need to care about it the way she did. I looked out over the vines, at the valley stretching beyond them, at the mountains in the distance. This place had been Aunt Carol's life for 40 years. She'd bought it as bare land and built it into something extraordinary. And now it was mine. Can I stay in the house for a few days? I asked. I need some time to think. Of course, it's your house. Tracy handed me a key. Take all the time you need. I'll be in the winery if you need anything. The house was exactly as I remembered it. Aunt Carol's furniture, her books, her photos on the walls. It smelled like her perfume and old wood and the lavender she'd grown in pots on the porch. Walking through it felt like walking through a memory. I found her office on the second floor, a room lined with filing cabinets and bookshelves. Her desk was still covered with papers, frozen in the moment she'd stopped being able to work. I sat in her chair and opened the drawers. More journals. These ones weren't about my family. They were about the vineyard. Notes on fermentation temperatures, ideas for new blends, plans for expanding the tasting room. The last entry was dated 3 weeks before she died. Today was a good day. Pain manageable. Tracy brought me samples of the new cab. It's going to be special. I wish I'd lived to taste it finished, but I know it's in good hands. Everything is in good hands now. I can rest. I cried reading that. Not the angry tears I'd cried over my family's betrayal, but sad tears for a woman who'd deserved more time, who'd built something beautiful and had to leave it before she was ready. I spent 3 days at the vineyard. I walked every row of vines. I sat in on a tasting in the tasting room, watching tourists sample the wines Aunt Carol had created. I toured the winery with Tracy, learning about crushing and fermentation and aging. I had dinner with Tracy and her husband, listening to stories about Aunt Carol's intensity and perfectionism, an unexpected sense of humor. By the 3rd day, I knew what I wanted to do. I want to keep it, I told Tracy, but I can't move up here full time. Not yet. Maybe eventually, but right now I have a job I love and a life in the city. Can we make that work? Absolutely. I'll keep managing operations. You can visit when you can. Learn the business gradually. Carol built a strong team here. We don't need an owner who micromanages. We need an owner who cares and who trusts us to do our jobs. I can do that. We worked out the details over the next week. Tracy would continue as general manager with a raise and profit sharing. I'd visit once a month, more during harvest and bottling. We'd have weekly video calls to discuss major decisions. I'd slowly learn enough about winemaking to understand what I owned, even if I never became an expert. I drove back to the city feeling different, lighter somehow, like I'd been carrying something heavy and had finally set it down. My apartment felt small after the vineyard house. I'd been living there for 4 years, a cramped 1-bedroom in a building with thin walls and a radiator that clanked all night. I'd never minded before. It was cheap and close to the hospital, and it was mine. But now I could afford better. I could afford anything. I started looking at new apartments. Not mansions or penthouses, just something bigger. Somewhere with a real kitchen and a second bedroom for guests, and maybe a small balcony. Somewhere that felt like an adult lived there instead of a student stretching every dollar. Ramona helped me look. We'd spent that Saturday at the spa like she'd promised, and she'd become something like a surrogate mother to me over the past month. She was the one who celebrated when the lawsuit was dropped. She was the one who told me I deserved nice things. She was the one who made sure I was taking care of myself. What about this one? She asked, showing me a listing on her phone. 2-bedroom condo in a quiet neighborhood, hardwood floors, updated kitchen, balcony overlooking a small park. The price made me wince, but I could afford it now. I could afford 10 of them. It's too much, I said. No, it's perfect. You've been living like a broke college student for 10 years. It's time to upgrade. Besides, you need somewhere to host people. I expect dinner invitations in your fancy new place. I laughed. Okay, let's go see it. The condo was perfect. Bright and clean and quiet, with enough space to breathe. I put in an offer that day and it was accepted within 24 hours. The seller was thrilled to have a cash buyer who could close quickly. I moved in 6 weeks later. Ramona helped me pick out furniture. Not expensive designer stuff, just comfortable pieces that made the place feel like home. A couch big enough to nap on. A real dining table instead of the folding card table I'd been using. A bed frame so I didn't have to sleep on a mattress on the floor anymore. Look at you, Ramona said, standing in my new living room. You look happy. Actually happy. I realized she was right. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt genuinely happy. Not anxious, not stressed, not waiting for the other shoe to drop. Just content. Work at the hospital felt different too. I wasn't desperate anymore. I didn't need every shift just to make rent. I could take a day off without panicking about money. I could say no to overtime without feeling guilty. I was still a good nurse, still cared about my patients, but I wasn't running on fumes anymore. One of my patients was an elderly woman named Dorothy who reminded me of Aunt Carol. Same sharp wit, same refusal to be treated like she was fragile just because she was sick. She was in for a broken hip, cranky about being confined to bed, demanding to know when she could go home. Soon, I told her, checking her vitals. You're healing well. Another few days and you'll be ready for rehab. I don't need rehab. I need to get back to my garden. My roses are probably dying without me. Your roses will survive. You need to let that hip heal properly or you'll end up right back here. She grumbled, but accepted it. Over the next few days, I made sure to spend extra time with her. She told me about her life, her late husband, her daughter who lived across the country and never visited. She showed me pictures of her garden, and it was beautiful. You remind me of my aunt, I said one day while helping her with physical therapy exercises. Yeah? Was she a pain in the ass too? I laughed. Sometimes, but she was also the best person I knew. She died a few months ago. I'm sorry. Were you close? Very. She left me her vineyard. Dorothy's eyes went wide. A vineyard? Fancy. What are you going to do with it? Keep it, I think. Learn how to run it. Honor what she built. Good girl. Don't let it go to waste. When someone leaves you something like that, it's not just property, it's trust. They're saying they trust you to care about it the way they did. I thought about that a lot over the next week. Trust. Aunt Carol had trusted me with her life's work, not because I knew anything about wine or business, but because she knew I'd care about it. She knew I wouldn't just sell it off to the highest bidder or run it into the ground through neglect. She'd trusted me to try. Dorothy went home after 2 weeks. Her daughter actually showed up for the discharge looking guilty and overwhelmed. I watched them leave and hoped maybe they'd figure their relationship out. Maybe the broken hip would be the wake-up call the daughter needed. My own family hadn't contacted me since the lawsuit was dropped. No apologies. No attempts at reconciliation, just silence. Part of me was relieved. Part of me was sad. I'd spent my whole childhood trying to earn their love, and now I'd finally accepted that I never would. They didn't have it in them to give. 3 months after moving into my new place, I threw a dinner party. Ramona and her husband, Tracy and her husband who'd driven down from Napa, a few other nurses from the hospital, my neighbor from across the hall, a grad student named Priya who'd helped me carry furniture upstairs. I cooked. Nothing fancy, just pasta and salad and bread, but I'd made it myself in my new kitchen. We sat around my new table, drinking wine from the vineyard, talking and laughing. At one point, I looked around at all these people who'd become my family by choice instead of biology, and I felt a wave of gratitude so strong it brought tears to my eyes. "You okay?" Ramona asked quietly. "Yeah, just happy." "Good, you deserve it." After everyone left, I cleaned up the kitchen and poured myself one more glass of wine. I took it out onto the balcony and looked at the city lights. Somewhere out there, my parents and sister were probably asleep in their house, maybe wondering why their plan hadn't worked, maybe still angry at me, maybe not thinking about me at all. It didn't matter anymore. They'd lost their power over me. They couldn't make me feel small or worthless or invisible. Aunt Carol had seen me, really seen me, and she'd given me the tools to build a life where I mattered. My phone buzzed. A text from Tracy. "Harvest starts next week. You coming up?" "Wouldn't miss it," I replied. I'd take time off work, spend a week at the vineyard, learn what harvest was really like. It would be exhausting and messy and probably overwhelming, but it would be mine. A life I'd inherited not because I'd manipulated or coerced anyone, but because I'd shown up, because I'd cared, because I'd been there. That's what Aunt Carol had tried to teach me, I realized. That showing up matters, that caring about people matters, that building something real takes time and effort and love. My parents had never learned that lesson. They'd thought family was about obligation and appearances and money, but Aunt Carol knew better. Family was about choosing to be there for someone, again and again, not because you had to, but because you wanted to. I finished my wine and went to bed. In the morning, I'd go to work. In a week, I'd go to the vineyard. In a year, who knew? Maybe I'd learn enough to blend my own wine. Maybe I'd open another tasting room. Maybe I'd keep being a nurse and just let Tracy run everything. Maybe I'd split my time between both lives. The point was, I had choices now. I had a future that was mine to shape. And I had proof, documented in journals and text messages and a $22 million inheritance, that I'd been worth loving all along. 6 months passed. The vineyard's harvest was successful, producing what Tracy called one of the best vintages in years. I'd spent that week working alongside the crew, learning to sort grapes and manage fermentation. My hands had been stained purple for days afterward, and I loved it. The holidays came. My first Thanksgiving and Christmas without any contact with my family. Ramona invited me to both, insisting I shouldn't spend them alone. Her family welcomed me like I'd always been there, her kids calling me aunt, and her husband making sure my wine glass was never empty. It was on New Year's Eve that everything changed again. I was at the hospital working the night shift. We'd drawn straws and I'd lost, so I was spending my evening dealing with drunk people who'd injured themselves at parties instead of celebrating myself. Around 11 p.m., a patient came in through the ER. Motor vehicle accident, critical condition, massive internal bleeding. I was assigned to prep the OR while the trauma team worked to stabilize her. I didn't look at the face, just focused on my job, getting instruments ready, and making sure we had enough blood on hand. It wasn't until the surgeon started working and I had a chance to glance at the patient's chart that I saw the name, my sister. My hands didn't shake, my voice didn't waver. I did my job because that's what nurses do. We help people even when those people have hurt us, even when those people have called us greedy bitches and vindictive snakes, even when those people have sued us and tried to destroy us. The surgery took 4 hours. The surgeon was good, one of the best in the hospital. But my sister had been driving drunk and hit a barrier at 70 miles an hour. The damage was extensive. When we finally wheeled her to recovery, the surgeon pulled me aside. "You're related to her, right? It's listed in her emergency contacts." "Yes, she's my sister. You need to call your family. She might not make it through the night. If they want to say goodbye, they should come now." I called my parents from the nurse's station. Dad answered on the first ring, his voice drunk and happy. I could hear party sounds in the background. "It's me," I said. "You need to come to the hospital. There's been an accident." The line went silent, except for the party noise. Then, what kind of accident? "Car accident. She's in critical condition. The doctor says you should come now if you want to see her." I heard him telling my mom. Her scream was so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. They arrived 40 minutes later, both of them still smelling like alcohol and wearing party clothes. Mom's mascara was running. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in the drive over. They saw me standing at the nurse's station and stopped. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then Mom rushed forward. "Where is she? What happened? Is she going to be okay?" "She's in recovery. The surgeon will come talk to you. She was driving drunk and crashed. She has massive internal injuries. They did what they could, but..." Mom collapsed into Dad's arms, sobbing. He held her, his face gray. "Can we see her?" "Not yet. The doctor needs to speak with you first. Wait here." I walked away before they could say anything else. I had other patients to attend to, other families to help. I couldn't fall apart just because my sister might be dying. The surgeon talked to them. I watched from a distance as he explained the injuries, the surgery, the grim prognosis. Mom kept saying no, over and over. Dad just stood there, his hands shaking. They were allowed in to see her around 2 a.m. I made sure I wasn't the nurse assigned to her room. I couldn't do it. I could be professional in the OR when she was unconscious and I was just doing a job, but I couldn't stand there while my parents wept over her. Couldn't watch them display the kind of love for her they'd never shown me. Ramona found me in the break room at 4 a.m., staring at a cold cup of coffee. "I heard," she said quietly. "You okay?" "I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel. I should be sad, right? She's my sister, and she might die. But all I feel is numb. That's normal. You don't owe her your tears just because you're related. Not after everything she did. What if she dies? What if the last conversation I ever have with her is her calling me a vindictive bitch?" Ramona sat down next to me. "Then that's on her, not you. You didn't cause this. She drove drunk. She made that choice. You don't have to forgive her or feel guilty just because she's paying consequences for her actions." My sister made it through the night, and the next day, and the day after that. Slowly, she stabilized. The doctor started saying words like recovery instead of critical. She'd live, but she'd have a long road ahead. Multiple surgeries, months of rehab, permanent damage to her liver and kidneys. My parents practically lived at the hospital. They'd come in every morning and stay until visiting hours ended. They'd sit by her bed, holding her hand, talking to her even though she was unconscious for the first 3 days. The love they'd always shown her poured out in an endless stream of devotion. I avoided them. It wasn't hard. I worked nights and they came during the day. But eventually, we crossed paths in the cafeteria. I'd just finished my shift and was grabbing breakfast before heading home. They were having coffee, looking exhausted. Mom saw me first. She stood up like she wanted to come over, then seemed to think better of it. Dad just stared at his coffee cup. I could have left. I could have grabbed my food and walked out. But something made me go over to their table. How is she? I asked. Mom's eyes filled with tears. She woke up yesterday. She can't talk yet because of the intubation, but she squeezed my hand. The doctors say she's going to survive. That's good. Silence. We stood there in the fluorescent lights of the hospital cafeteria. 3 people related by blood, but strangers in every way that mattered. I heard you were in the OR, Dad said finally. That you helped save her. I did my job. Any nurse would have done the same. Still, thank you. I didn't know what to say to that. They'd sued me, defamed me, called me terrible things, and now they were thanking me for doing the bare minimum any medical professional would do. I'm glad she's going to be okay, I said, and I meant it. Despite everything, I didn't want her to die. I just didn't want her in my life either. We've been talking, Mom said carefully, about everything. About Carol's will and the lawsuit and how we treated you growing up. Okay, we were wrong. We see that now. We favored your sister. We took you for granted. We never appreciated what an incredible person you are. And then when Carol left you the vineyard, instead of being happy for you, we got greedy and awful. We're sorry. We're so sorry. I looked at her, at Dad, at their exhausted faces and red eyes and genuine-looking remorse. Part of me wanted to believe them, wanted to think that nearly losing my sister had sparked some kind of revelation, made them realize how badly they'd failed as parents. But I'd seen this before. I'd seen how they acted when they wanted something. They were good at performing remorse when it served them. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Because it's true, Dad said. Because we want to make things right. Or because your daughter almost died and you're scared and emotional and looking for something to hold on to? They both flinched. Mom started crying again. You have every right to be angry. We don't deserve your forgiveness. But we're asking anyway. Please. We want to be a family again. We were never a family, I said quietly. We were just people living in the same house. You made that clear every day of my childhood. We can change, Mom insisted. We can do better. Maybe you can. I hope you do, for my sister's sake. But I don't need you to. I have a good life now. I have people who actually care about me. I don't need you to suddenly decide I'm worth your attention because you're scared of losing your other daughter. I picked up my food and walked away. Behind me, I heard Mom sobbing. I didn't look back. My sister recovered slowly. After 2 weeks, she was moved from ICU to a regular room. After 3 weeks, she was stable enough for visitors beyond immediate family. I'd heard through the hospital grapevine that she was asking for me. I didn't go. Ramona thought I should. You don't have to forgive her or rebuild a relationship, but maybe you need closure. Maybe you need to tell her how you feel, face to face, now that she can hear you. Why? What's the point? The point is you've carried their rejection your whole life. Maybe it's time to give it back to them. Let them carry their own guilt for once. I thought about it for 2 days. Finally, I went to her room during a quiet shift. She was awake, staring at the ceiling, an oxygen mask over her face. She looked small and fragile in the hospital bed. Nothing like the confident girl who checked her Instagram at Aunt Carol's funeral. She saw me, and her eyes widened. She reached for the mask, pulling it down. You came, she whispered. Her voice was raspy from the intubation. Don't talk, you'll strain your throat. I need to say this. She coughed, wincing in pain. I'm sorry for everything, for how we treated you growing up, for the lawsuit, for what I said. I was awful to you and you didn't deserve any of it. No, I didn't. Mom and Dad are sorry too. They know they messed up. We all do. Is that supposed to make it better? You almost died, so now you're sorry? What if you hadn't crashed? Would you still be calling me greedy on Facebook? She looked away. Probably. I don't know. I was so angry that Carol chose you over me. It felt like she was saying I wasn't good enough. You weren't. Not for her standards. She wanted someone who actually cared about her, not someone who saw her as a bank account. I know that now. I've been lying here for weeks thinking about everything. About how I always had everything handed to me while you had to fight for every scrap. About how I never appreciated any of it because it was just normal to me. About how you saved my life even though I didn't deserve it. I didn't save your life because you deserved it. I saved it because I'm a nurse and that's my job. Don't make it into more than it was. She started crying. Please, I know I can't undo what we did, but can we try? Can we try to be sisters for real this time? I looked at her lying there, broken and crying and genuinely remorseful as far as I could tell, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no desire to comfort her or rebuild a bridge. Just emptiness where a sibling relationship should have been. No, I said. We can't. Because I don't want to. I spent 18 years trying to earn your love and Mom and Dad's love. I don't want to spend another 18 years wondering if this time you really mean it or if you're just scared and emotional and looking for absolution. I'm done. But we're family. We're related. That's not the same thing. Family shows up for each other. Family doesn't wait until someone almost dies to start caring. You had 100 chances to be my sister, and you chose not to take any of them. I'm not giving you 101. I walked out while she was still crying. I felt bad for about 30 seconds. Then I felt free. I'd said what I needed to say. I'd given back their guilt. I didn't owe them anything else. Mom tried to call me the next day. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Please talk to your sister. She's been crying since you left. She really wants to make things right. We all do. We're begging you. I deleted the voicemail. Then I called Vivian. I need you to draft a cease and desist letter, I said. My family is trying to contact me again. I want it formally documented that I don't want any relationship with them, that they need to leave me alone. I can do that. But are you sure? Your sister almost died. Sometimes near-death experiences really do change people, I'm sure. Even if they have changed, I don't care. I've moved on. I want them to do the same. Okay, I'll have it drafted by end of day. The letter was delivered to my parents' house the next morning. In it, Vivian outlined that I had no interest in reconciling, that continued contact would be considered harassment, and that if they persisted, I would pursue a restraining order. It was harsh, but necessary. They didn't try to contact me again after that. But I heard through the hospital grapevine that my sister was devastated, that she told her physical therapist she'd lost her sister twice. Once when she sued me, and again when I refused to forgive her. I tried to feel bad about that. I couldn't. A year passed. I settled into my new life. The vineyard was thriving. I'd learned enough about winemaking to contribute to blending decisions. Tracy and I had become real partners, working together to expand the business. We'd opened a second tasting room, partnered with a local restaurant, started a wine education program. I'd also gone back to school part-time, taking business classes. If I was going to own a multi-million-dollar company, I wanted to understand how to run it properly. It was exhausting, working at the hospital and taking classes and visiting the vineyard, but it was good exhaustion, the kind that came from building something instead of just surviving. Ramona retired from nursing and came to work at the vineyard full-time, managing the tasting room. She loved it, loved talking to tourists and teaching them about wine. She'd found her calling at 55 years old. I dated someone for a few months, a teacher I met at a wine tasting event. It didn't work out, but it was nice while it lasted. Nice to have someone who cared about me, who wanted to know about my day, who didn't treat me like I was invisible. When we broke up, it was amicable. We just wanted different things. My apartment became a home. I hosted regular dinner parties. I had a life filled with people who chose to be there. I was happy. Actually, genuinely happy. On the 1-year anniversary of Aunt Carol's death, I drove up to the vineyard. Tracy had organized a memorial, just a small gathering of people who'd known her. We drank wine from her favorite vintage and shared stories. I told them about how she used to let me help with harvest when I was a teenager, how patient she'd been teaching me to prune vines. She talked about you constantly, one of her old business partners said. She was so proud of you, said you were the only one in your family worth a damn. She was right, Tracy added. You've honored everything she built. She'd be really happy to see what you've done with this place. That night, I sat on the porch alone, watching the sunset over the vines. I thought about Aunt Carol, about how she'd seen me when no one else did, about how she'd documented my family's failures not to punish them, but to protect me, about how her final act had been giving me the tools to build a life that mattered. I thought about my parents and sister, probably sitting in their house, maybe still bitter about what they'd lost, maybe still convinced they'd been wronged. Or maybe they'd moved on too, found a way to live with their guilt. I didn't care either way. They weren't part of my story anymore. My phone buzzed. A text from Ramona. Wine club shipment went out today. 847 members. New record. That's amazing, I replied. Aunt Carol would be proud. She'd be proud of you. I looked at that text for a long time. Proud of me. Not for being perfect or for doing everything right, but for showing up, for caring, for building something real. I thought about the girl I'd been a year ago, standing in her tiny apartment, listening to her family scream at her for wanting to keep what she'd been given. That girl had been terrified. She'd been convinced she'd somehow lose everything, that she wasn't good enough to deserve this gift. I wasn't that girl anymore. I'd fought for what was mine. I'd stood up to bullies who happened to share my DNA. I'd learned to run a business, to blend wine, to be an owner instead of just surviving. I'd built a family by choice and a life that felt worth living. The next morning, I was having coffee on the porch when Tracy came running up the path, waving her phone. You need to see this, she said breathlessly. She showed me an article in a wine industry magazine. Rising Stars, 10 Vineyards to Watch. The vineyard was featured with photos of the property and quotes from Tracy about our sustainable practices and innovative blends. This is huge, Tracy said. This kind of press will double our wine club membership, maybe triple it. I read through the article, seeing phrases like honoring tradition while embracing innovation and a testament to family legacy. They'd interviewed me without me even knowing, pulling quotes from an email I'd sent about Aunt Carol's vision for the vineyard. Carol built something incredible, I was quoted as saying. My job is to honor what she created while helping it grow. She taught me that great wine comes from great grapes, but great vineyards come from great relationships. With the land, with the community, with the people who make it all possible. I didn't remember writing that, but it was true. That's what Aunt Carol had taught me, that relationships matter, that showing up matters. That the way you treat people when they can't do anything for you reveals your true character. My family had failed that test, spectacularly. And in failing it, they'd lost everything. But I'd passed. And in passing, I'd gained everything. 2 years after Aunt Carol's death, I got another call from a lawyer. Not Vivian this time, but someone from my parents' estate attorney's office. I'm calling about your parents' will, the lawyer said. They wanted you to know they've updated it. Why are you telling me? Because they've left everything to you. Your sister is no longer in the will. I was silent for a moment, trying to process that. Why? They didn't give me specifics. But they wanted to make sure you knew. They also included a letter for you. Can I send it to your address? No. Send it to my lawyer. I gave them Vivian's information and hung up. The letter arrived at Vivian's office 2 days later. She read it first, then called me. It's not a trick, she said. It's actually an apology. A real one. What does it say? Do you want me to read it to you or send it over? Read it. I don't want to see their handwriting. I heard papers rustling. Then Vivian started reading. Dear daughter, we don't deserve your forgiveness and we're not asking for it. We know we failed you. We know we treated you terribly your entire life, and we know that saying sorry now doesn't change any of that. Your sister's accident changed us. Not because it made us suddenly love you more, but because it made us see how badly we'd failed both of you. We raised one daughter to be entitled and shallow, and we raised the other to be strong and independent. One of them nearly died driving drunk because she'd never learned to handle disappointment. The other saved her life because she'd learned to be competent despite us, not because of us. We've been in therapy for the past year, individual and couples, trying to understand why we treated you the way we did. The therapist says your mother was jealous of you from the time you were little. You looked like her younger sister who she'd always competed with. She projected all her insecurity onto you. I was too weak to stand up to her, too afraid of conflict to protect you. Those aren't excuses. They're explanations. We failed you, and no amount of therapy will change that. Your sister is in therapy too. She's working on becoming someone better. We hope she succeeds. But we're not asking you to forgive her either. We know we don't deserve that. We've updated our will. Everything goes to you when we die. Not because we think money will make up for your childhood, but because you're the only one who knows how to handle responsibility without letting it destroy you. You're the only one who learned what really matters. We see that now. Too late, but we see it. We love you. We always did. We just didn't know how to show it in any way that mattered. We're sorry we failed you. We're sorry we made you invisible. We're sorry we made you feel like you had to earn what should have been freely given. You don't have to respond to this letter. You don't have to contact us. We just wanted you to know that we see you now. We see how extraordinary you are. And we're sorry it took us losing you to figure that out. Love, Mom and Dad. Vivian finished reading. What do you want to do? I thought about it for a long time. About the girl I'd been who would have done anything for this letter. Who would have cried with relief at finally being seen by her parents. But I wasn't that girl anymore. Nothing, I said. I don't want to do anything. You don't want to respond at all? No, they said I don't have to, so I won't. Let them sit with their guilt. Let them wonder if I read it or cared or felt anything. They spent my whole childhood making me wonder if they loved me. They can spend the rest of their lives wondering if I forgive them. That's harsh. It's fair. Okay, I'll file the letter and let you know if anything else comes up. I hung up and went back to work. I was at the vineyard helping with bottling. The work was physical and mindless and satisfying. Each bottle filled, corked, labeled, each one a small piece of something larger. Tracy found me an hour later. You okay? You look distracted. My parents sent a letter, an apology. That's good, right? I don't know, maybe, but it doesn't change anything. They could have apologized 20 years ago. They could have done better while it still mattered. Apologizing now just makes them feel better about themselves. What are you going to do? Nothing. Let them live with what they did. Tracy nodded. Carol would approve. She used to say the best revenge is living well while your enemies eat their own guilt. She said that all the time, especially after your parents would call asking for money. She'd hang up and pour a glass of wine and say the best revenge is living well. Then she'd go back to work, creating something beautiful instead of dwelling on their ugliness. I thought about that. Living well as revenge, building something instead of tearing others down. It was very Aunt Carol, and it was what I'd been doing for 2 years without even realizing it. Come on, Tracy said. We've got 500 more bottles to fill. Let's get to work. We worked until sunset, filling bottles with wine that would be shipped to people all over the country. People who'd never met Aunt Carol but would taste what she'd built, her legacy in liquid form. That night, I sat on the porch with a glass of that wine and thought about family, about how the one you're born into can fail you, but the one you build can save you, about how sometimes the greatest gift someone can give you is proof that you matter. Aunt Carol had given me that. Not just the vineyard or the money, but the documentation, the journals and texts and recordings that proved I wasn't crazy, that my childhood really had been as bad as I remembered, that I'd been the one showing up while everyone else had been taking advantage. That validation had been worth more than the $22 million. It had given me permission to walk away without guilt, to build a new life without looking back, to finally stop trying to earn love from people who'd never planned to give it. My phone rang. Ramona. Hey, I'm making dinner. Want to come over? I'm at the vineyard. Perfect. So am I. Come to the guest house. I made too much pasta and I need help eating it. I walked over to the guest house where Ramona lived now. She'd sold her place in the city and moved up permanently, saying she'd rather spend her retirement somewhere beautiful. We ate pasta on her patio, drinking wine and talking about nothing important, about her grandkids and my love life and whether we should expand the tasting room. You're different than when I first met you, she said at one point. How so? You take up space now. When I first met you at the hospital, you were always trying to be small, like you were apologizing for existing. Now you're just here, present. Like you know you belong. I do belong. It took me 28 years to figure that out, but I do. Carol knew that before you did. That's why she left you all this. She saw who you were, even when you couldn't see it yourself. We finished dinner and cleaned up together. I drove back to the main house feeling content, feeling like I'd finally arrived at the life I was supposed to have. 3 years after Aunt Carol's death, my sister reached out through Ramona. She'd gotten Ramona's number from the Vineyard website and called asking if she'd pass along a message. She wants to meet with you, Ramona told me. Says she's been sober for 18 months and she's working a 12-step program. One of the steps is making amends. Tell her no. You sure? She sounded different, humbler. I'm sure. She's not entitled to my forgiveness just because she got sober. That's for her to carry, not for me to absolve. Ramona passed along the message. My sister sent a letter anyway. Ramona brought it to me, unopened. I told her you weren't interested, Ramona said. She sent it anyway. Said even if you don't read it, she needed to write it. I threw it away without opening it. Later that night, I pulled it out of the trash and read it anyway. The letter was long, handwritten, tear-stained. She detailed every way she'd failed as a sister. Every time she'd been cruel or dismissive or selfish. She talked about rehab, about therapy, about learning that her entire identity had been built on comparison and privilege. She said she was trying to become someone better. Not for me, but for herself. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't ask to meet. She just said she was sorry and that she hoped I was happy. I read it twice. Then I put it in a drawer. Not thrown away, but not answered. Just acknowledged and set aside. Did you read it? Ramona asked the next day. Yeah. And nothing. She's sorry. Good for her. Doesn't change what happened. Do you think you'll ever forgive them? I don't know. Maybe someday, but not today. And not because they earned it, just because holding on to anger takes too much energy and I'd rather spend that energy on things that matter. That's fair. The vineyard continued to grow. We expanded to 60 acres, hired more staff, won awards for our Cabernet and our Pinot Noir. I cut back my hours at the hospital to part-time, focusing more on the business. I discovered I loved it. The strategy, the relationships with distributors, the satisfaction of seeing something grow. I was 32 when I met David. He was a chef at one of the restaurants that carried our wine. He came up for a vineyard tour with his culinary team, wanting to understand the wine better so they could pair it properly. We spent the afternoon talking about terroir and tannins and how to balance acid in food with acid in wine. He asked me out at the end of the tour. I said yes. It was different than my previous relationships. Easier. He didn't need me to perform or prove myself. He just liked me. We spent weekends cooking together, visiting other wineries, exploring the valley. He made me laugh. He made me feel seen. 6 months in, I took him to meet Ramona. She interrogated him like a mob boss interrogating a snitch, asking about his intentions and his divorce history and whether he wanted kids. He handled it gracefully, answering honestly and making her laugh. I like him, she told me after he left. He's good people. Don't screw it up. Thanks for the vote of confidence. I'm serious. You deserve someone who treats you right. He does. Don't self-sabotage because you don't think you deserve good things. I don't do that anymore. Good. Keep it that way. A year into our relationship, David proposed. Simple proposal. Nothing dramatic. We were at the vineyard watching sunset over the vines, and he pulled out a ring. I love you, he said. I love your strength and your kindness, and how you turned tragedy into something beautiful. I love how you care about people and grapes and details. I love you. Marry me. I said yes. We got married at the vineyard 6 months later. Small wedding, just 40 people. Ramona officiated. Tracy organized everything. My coworkers from the hospital came. David's family came. None of my blood family came because I didn't invite them. It was perfect. During the reception, Ramona made a toast. I've known this woman for 7 years, she said. I've watched her go from a scared girl working 3 jobs to a confident woman who runs a multi-million-dollar business. I've watched her survive family betrayal and come out stronger. I've watched her build a life that honors someone who believed in her when no one else did. To the bride, may you always remember that you didn't just inherit a vineyard. You inherited the strength to claim the life you deserve. Everyone cheered. I cried. Happy tears this time. That night, after everyone had left and David and I were alone in the main house, I found myself thinking about Aunt Carol, about how she'd known this would happen. Not the specifics, but the general arc. That I'd take what she gave me and build something bigger. That I'd find people who loved me for who I was. That I'd finally stop being invisible. What are you thinking about? David asked. My aunt, wishing she could be here to see this. She's here. This place is her. And you're proof that she was right to believe in you. He was right. She was here, in every vine, every bottle, every decision I made about the business. Her legacy wasn't just the physical property. It was the lesson she'd taught me, that showing up matters, that caring matters, that building something real takes time and effort and love. 5 years after Aunt Carol's death, I got word that my father was sick. Cancer, advanced, maybe 6 months left. My mom called Vivian, asking if I'd visit. They're not asking for money or forgiveness, Vivian said. Just a chance to see you before he dies. No, you're sure? I thought about my sister's story from the file I'd read, the one about the girl whose parents abandoned her when she had cancer, then asked for help when the dad got sick, how she'd shown up at the hospital just to watch them squirm before walking away. I understood that impulse, the desire to make them feel the abandonment they'd made me feel, but I also knew that going would cost me something. It would dredge up all the old pain, force me to confront people who'd hurt me, make me feel small again even for a minute. I didn't want that. I'd built a life where I felt big, where I mattered, where I was loved. I wasn't going to compromise that for some dramatic confrontation that would make me feel powerful for 30 seconds and hollow afterward. I'm sure. Tell my mom I'm sorry he's sick, but I can't help. Suggest she ask the daughter she actually invested in. Your sister? Yeah, she's the one they loved. She's the one they spent 20 years building up. She's the one who should be there. Vivian passed along the message. My mom sent one more letter through Vivian. This one I did read. Your sister is there. She's been there every day. She drives 3 hours each way to sit with your father while he's sleeping. She helps me understand the medical jargon. She holds my hand when I cry. She's finally become the daughter we should have raised her to be from the start. But she's not you. And your father wants to see you. He wants to tell you he's sorry. He wants to tell you he's proud of you. He wants to see the woman you've become. I know we don't deserve this, but I'm asking anyway. Please, give him this one thing before he dies. Love, Mom. I showed the letter to David. What do you think I should do? I think you should do whatever lets you sleep at night. If you go and it helps you find closure, great. If you don't go and you're fine with that, also great. There's no right answer here, just what you can live with. I thought about it for 3 days. Finally, I decided. I didn't go. My father died 6 weeks later. I didn't go to the funeral either. I sent flowers with a card that said, "Condolences on your loss." Nothing more. My mom tried to call afterward. I didn't answer. My sister sent a text. He asked for you at the end. He wanted you to know he was proud of you. I hope that brings you peace. I deleted it. Then I poured a glass of wine from Aunt Carol's favorite vintage and sat on the porch watching the sunset. Did I feel guilty? A little. Did I regret not going? No. I'd spent my whole childhood trying to earn my father's love. I wasn't going to spend his death giving him absolution he hadn't earned just because he was dying. Cancer didn't make him a better father. It just made him a dying one. The vineyard continued to thrive. We crossed $3 million in annual revenue, expanded into distribution in 12 states, won more awards. I'd stopped working at the hospital entirely, focusing full-time on the business. I missed nursing sometimes, but I was doing something bigger now, building something that would last beyond me. David and I talked about kids. We decided to wait a few more years, get the business even more stable first. We were happy. We had time. My mom tried to reach out a few more times over the next year. Birthday cards, Christmas cards, a letter on the anniversary of my father's death. I didn't respond to any of them, not out of cruelty, but out of self-preservation. I'd built a life that didn't include her. Including her now would only compromise what I'd built. My sister stopped trying to contact me. I heard through Ramona, who'd stayed in loose touch with her through AA, that she'd gotten married, moved to Oregon, was teaching high school English, that she'd been sober for 4 years and was doing well. I was glad for her. I hoped she'd found peace. But I didn't reach out. Her journey was separate from mine now. 10 years after Aunt Carol's death, I stood on the porch of the main house and looked out over the vineyard. David was inside making dinner. Ramona was in the guest house watching TV. The vines were heavy with grapes ready for harvest. The sun was setting over the valley, painting everything gold. I thought about the girl I'd been 10 years ago, working 3 jobs, invisible, trying so hard to matter. If I could go back and tell her what was coming, I don't know if she'd believe me, that she'd inherit millions, that she'd run a successful business, that she'd marry someone who loved her without conditions, that she'd build a family by choice, that she'd finally stop feeling invisible, that the people who made her feel worthless would come begging for her forgiveness, and she'd have the strength to say no, that she'd be happy, actually genuinely happy. My phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Hi, this is Melissa Thornton from the California Wine Board. I'm trying to reach the owner of the vineyard. That's me. Wonderful. I'm calling because you've been nominated for the prestigious Legacy Award, given to vineyards that have maintained exceptional quality for over 50 years while transitioning between generations. The award ceremony is in San Francisco next month. Would you be interested in attending? Yes, absolutely. She gave me the details. Black tie event, industry professionals, press coverage, a chance to honor Aunt Carol's work while showcasing what I'd built. I hung up and went inside to tell David. He pulled me into a hug. Carol would be so proud, he said. I hope so. I really hope so. The night of the award ceremony, I wore a dress Aunt Carol had bought me years ago. I'd saved it for something special. This felt special enough. The ballroom was full of people who knew wine, who understood what it took to build and maintain a business like this. When they called my name and I walked to the stage, I didn't feel invisible. I didn't feel like the other one. I felt seen. This award isn't really mine, I said during my acceptance speech. It belongs to my Aunt Carol, who spent 40 years building something extraordinary, who taught me that great wine comes from great grapes, but great vineyards come from great relationships, who showed me that family isn't about biology, it's about who shows up for you, who documented her love for me so thoroughly that when others tried to take what she gave me, I had proof that I deserved it. My voice cracked a little at the end. She believed in me before I believed in myself. This award, this vineyard, this life, they're all because she saw me when I was invisible to everyone else. So thank you, Aunt Carol, for everything. The room erupted in applause. Afterward, people came up to congratulate me, to talk about my story, to express admiration for what I'd built. The press took photos. Industry leaders wanted to partner with us. I was flying when I got home that night. David was waiting up, wanting to hear everything. Ramona came over in her bathrobe to celebrate. You did it, Ramona said, opening a bottle of champagne. You took what Carol gave you and made it something even bigger. You should be so proud. I am, and I'm grateful for all of it. For Carol, for this place, for you, for David, for everyone who showed up for me when my blood family wouldn't. We toasted. To family by choice, to second chances, to the quiet vindication of living well. My mom saw the award announcement in the news. She sent a letter through Vivian one last time. I saw you won the Legacy Award. Your father would have been so proud. I'm so proud. You've built something incredible. You've become someone incredible. I know I have no right to claim any part of that, but I want you to know I see you now. I see how extraordinary you are. And I'm sorry I spent your whole childhood making you invisible. You deserved better. You deserved everything. And somehow, despite us, you built everything anyway. Congratulations. I love you, Mom. I read it once. Then I put it in the drawer with my sister's letter from years ago. Acknowledged, but not answered. Maybe someday I'd respond. Maybe someday I'd be ready to let them back in, even a little, but not today. Today I was going to sit on my porch, drink my wine, and be grateful for the life I'd built from the ashes of the one I'd been born into. Today I was going to remember that showing up matters, that caring matters, that the best revenge is living well while your enemies eat their own guilt. Today I was going to be happy, actually genuinely completely happy, and that, more than any inheritance or award or business success, was the real gift Aunt Carol had given me. The permission to stop trying to earn love from people who'd never planned to give it. The freedom to walk away without guilt. The strength to build something real with people who actually cared. I raised my glass to the sunset, to the vines, to the ghost of a woman who'd seen me when I was invisible. Thank you, I whispered, for everything. The vines swayed in the evening breeze, heavy with fruit, full of promise. Tomorrow we'd start harvest. Tomorrow we'd begin the process of turning grapes into wine, raw materials into something beautiful. But tonight I just sat and appreciated what I had. A home, a family, a legacy, a life that mattered. And somewhere, I like to think, Aunt Carol was sitting on a porch and whatever came next, drinking wine and smiling, knowing her plan had worked, knowing she'd given me exactly what I needed, exactly when I needed it. Not just money or property, but proof, documentation, evidence that I mattered, that I'd always mattered, that being invisible was never about my worth. It was always about their blindness. I wasn't invisible anymore, and I never would be again.